Hello, we're going to talk about mother wounds. Women's Day special. I'm going to talk with my favorite IGTV partner, Sangeetha Parthasarathy. Just going to wait for some of you to join. We'll say hi and then we'll start in a minute, okay? Hello, hi. Advanced Women's Day wishes to all of you. Hello. Sangeetha, are you here? Hi. Hello, hello. Thank you. Thank you for all the support. Sangeetha, are you here? Hi, Subha. Okay, let me add Sangeetha. I don't know where she is. Hi, Kavita. Thank you. Thank you so much. Are you Tamil? No, I'm a Malayali, but I know Tamil. I know Tamil better than how much I know Malayalam. Oh, thank you so much, Suhad. Sangeetha, we're still waiting for you, girl. Where are you? Sangeetha, 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 Sangeetha. இப்பதான் இருந்தா இங்க. The moment you say you're Malayali, உடனே people start asking. நாட்டுல எப்படியா? நாட்டுல எப்படியா? நாட்டுல எங்கும் அல்ல. I'm here for 15, 16 years in Coimbatore now. நாட்டுல எங்கும் அல்ல ഞാൻ. My parents are from Kottayam. Yeah. And I've lived my life in Munnar. So நாட்டுல எப்படியா question will get Idiki as the answer. Sangeetha, come fast. She's waiting. I don't know where Sangeetha is. I think I'll start the live again. Not able to add her. Wait, I'll start again, okay? Hey, yeah, okay, she's here. Okay. எங்கடா போன? I'm not able to add you.
ஹாய்
அப்பாடா. Hi.
ரொம்ப நாள் ஆச்சு.
ரொம்ப நாள் ஆச்சா? என்ன baby? You want to say hi to my friend? Mm-hmm.
ஹாய்
Her name
மாயா.
is Sangeetha. Hi, Maya. And she has curly hair like me.
See and you.
See? Yeah.
Can I tell you something?
என்ன baby? What? What? Did she eat the book? No, that was another auntie. அவ்வளவுதான் போய்க்கோ.
Bye.
பாய்
Bye.
பாய்.
Okay. So, I have not written any questions or anything, okay?
ஓகே,
அப்படியே பேச வேண்டியதான்.
நம்ம யூஸ்வலா
ஓகேவா?
பண்ற மாதிரி.
யூஸ்வலா பண்ற மாதிரி தான். புலம்புன்னு புலம்ப வேண்டியதான். Okay, and we have to do it in English also now. There are a lot of Malayalis and Telugu speaking people and all of them on my handle. Hi Sangeetha, she was waiting. Duda.
Who was waiting? Oh, okay. You, Swati. Okay. Hi, Subhashni.
Okay. So, Sangeetha, we've always wanted to talk about mother wounds,
Yes.
for a very, very long time. I think more than a year or something.
Yes.
Mother wounds பத்தி எப்போ நம்ம டிஸ்கஸ் பண்ணோம். And so many people have this doubt. What is mother wounds? Do I have mother wounds? How to identify if I have mother wounds? How to make sure that my child will not have mother wounds? What the hell is his mother wounds? So, ஆரம்பிச்சிரு. ரொம்ப நேரம் டைம் வேஸ்ட் ஆயிடுச்சு. நீ எங்கன்னு தேடி தேடி. So, start.
Yeah.
Start music.
Okay, so a little bit of background is number one. I think in some
சரி
ways
இங்க பாரு இல்ல விமென்ஸ் டேல ஒரு பாட்டெல்லாம் பாடி ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணலாம். நீ ஒரு பாட்டு பாடு.
Oh, what நேர் விருப்பம்.
நேர் விருப்பம். நேற்று இல்லாத மாற்றம் பாடு.
கேக்கல. What was it?
Yes, we are going to have this discussion in English for sure. But before that, I just want her to start by singing a song.
Shamiha.
Okay. Yeah, நேற்று இல்லாத மாற்றம் பாடு.
நேற்று இல்லாத மாற்றம் என்னது, காற்று என் காதில் ஏதோ சொன்னது, இதுதான் காதல் என்பதா, இளமை பொங்கி விட்டதா, இதயம் சிந்தி விட்டதா, சொல் மனமே.
Thank you.
Actually, it's been a long time since I sang like, on Insta, so it's quite nice.
Yeah, that's nice, very nice. Okay, so now let's start. What is getting stuck in between are you? இப்படி எல்லாம் சொல்லாதீங்கப்பா. என்னப்பா?
இல்ல, I think it's worked itself out now.
பரவாயில்லையா?
Oh my god, if women start talking, it won't end.
Yeah, that's how it's going to be. We're going to start and it will never end. Join us, Santosh Madiya. பேர் படிக்க முடியல. Okay, சொல்லுடா. What is mother wounds? சொல்லு.
In a lot of ways, this discussion has kind of been leading up from some of the work that some of the stuff that we've spoken in the past. But mother wound is a specific, family.
ஒரே நிமிஷம். Before you begin, break ஆயி வருது. Can I add you back again? இப்போ ஒரு செகண்ட்ல ஒன்னு திருப்பி ஆட் பண்றேன்.
Yes. Okay, I'll go on.
Just a second. Okay. Nice song, no? She sang so well, illa. Or now we'll have a live with just singing.
Okay. How is it?
Yeah, this is better.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, what we've sort of led into it. We've talked about the good girl syndrome. We've talked about patriarchy. And so this is a nice lead-in into what we're going to talk about today, which is mother wound. So mother wound is a very specific kind of mother-daughter relationship and trauma that is caused as a result of, it's a familial, cultural trauma as a result of living in patriarchy. So,
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very specific kind of trauma between the mother and in the mother and daughter relationship. And, there is many overlapping elements with the mother and son relationship as well. But it is very deeply held in our bodies, and it shows up in every single thing that women do. Your eating, your parenting, your relationships, your career, your relationship with money. It's a pervasive, collective, and personal trauma pattern.
Okay.
Give me one second. I'm going to hook up the mic. Audio ஒழுங்கா இருக்கா?
Audio இல்ல வீடியோ கொஞ்சம் ஸ்டக் ஆயி வருது. 4G யா Wi-Fi யா?
Wi-Fi தான்.
Wi-Fi தானா?
Okay, see if this works. If not, I'll switch over to my phone. Okay.
எதுல பண்ணிட்டு இருக்க?
This is my iPad.
ஏதாவது ஒண்ணு புதுசா பண்ணிட்டே இருக்கேன் சங்கீதா. ஒவ்வொரு தடவை ஏதாவது ஒண்ணு மைக் வைக்கிறேன், இன்னொரு நாள் ஸ்பீக்கர் வைக்கிறேன், இன்னொரு நாள் பாடுறதுக்காக அந்த ரவுண்டா இருக்கிறத ஒண்ணு முன்னாடி உட்கார்ந்து பேசிட்டு இருக்கிற.
அது வாங்கி ரொம்ப நாள் ஆச்சு actually.
சரி,
Okay,
ஓகே.
we'll continue with this. If it doesn't work, then I can switch over to another device.
Okay, no, we'll just ask these people how it is. How is it for them? சங்கீதா பேசுறது எனக்கு கொஞ்சம் ஸ்டக்காய் வருது. But how is it for you people? Subha or Ashwini, Sandhya, Soundarya. It's clear for them. அப்படின்னு Soundarya போட்டிருக்கு.
Okay. Are you guys able to listen to us? I mean, am I audible? How's my video?
கண்டினியூஸா வருதா ஆடியோ? சங்கீதாவோட ஆடியோ?
இல்ல தெரியல.
Audio is fine.
Excellent.
Okay.
Cool.
So yeah, so you told it's related to trauma, mother-daughter trauma. So how does it start? I mean, or there's still more clarity that we need. What
Yes.
is mother wounds?
Yeah. What? Okay, so before we go more into it, let's talk about what patriarchy is. We've done that in the past, but I want to kind of expand on it, right?
Okay.
So patriarchy is a set of ideas, okay, some of which are that the default human is male, you know, not just male, he's heterosexual, he is white, you know, or you know, for India he's like an upper caste male. Okay. So அது வந்து default, அதாவது ஆண் சார்ந்த சமூகம், that is male lineage, that is male centric society, right? It is not just that, as I've described before. Patriarchy also needs a set of other things for it to work, okay? It coexists with this idea that productivity is everything, and shaming rest, shaming the need to take time for yourself. It's constantly prioritizing you know, productivity. It is also, what it's doing is it's glorifying lack of empathy, it's glorifying violence, it's glorifying power, you know, power over, you know, ends justify means kind of thing, right? And it constantly shames the feminine. It also constantly shames your right to have feelings and to express them. So we're constantly glorifying people who can minimize their feelings, can be dissociated from their bodies, because the male is the default, right? And toxic masculinity is glorified and is the default. What happens as a result of women living in such a, so, and there is different kinds of levels of this wound, okay? So one is of course the family, the mother and daughter, personal mother wound. There is another mother wound which is cultural, you know, our relationships with the culture itself. And this is why I always keep saying that whether or not you grow up around overt patriarchy at home, it is there in the air. The minute you step out of the house, you see it, you hear it, and there's no escaping that, right? Globally, but also specifically brown patriarchy, right? So there is that. There is also spiritual mother wound, because even in spirituality, the default god is male. And there is that sense of not being connected to the spiritual, you know, feminine. Okay. And then there's not that planetary, you know, like, trauma around, you know, how we're killing the environment, destruction of the planet. And, you know, some of us feel it very deeply in their bodies. My point is, it can take many forms, but it's the fundamental premise is this mother and daughter, for the purposes of today's conversation. A big part of what I'm going to talk about also applies to the male, but for this conversation, I think we focus on that mother-daughter relationship. And before we go any further, I'm going to say, but all men should listen to it, because you can see your mothers in this conversation. So I think it's absolutely essential that men listen to it. And the second thing is, if you're a woman and if you identify as woman and you're listening to it, I'd invite you to, we might talk about some really painful stuff. For the purposes of this discussion, think of yourself as the daughter, right? Not as, even if you have children, not necessarily thinking of you as the mother for now,
Okay.
right? For the context of this discussion, it is you, the daughter, right? Not you, the mother. If you can listen to it with those eyes, I think this is the journey in which we're going to go. So this set of rules, right? This patriarchal setup is everywhere. Whether women stay at home or whether they go outside to work or whatever it is, or they're managing a home where on the outside everything is met. They have people to do their work, their wealth, etc. There is still this patriarchy, right? What happens is then that suffocates women and mothers, right? And it is too much, right? So there is a lot of rage and anger that's seething that really cannot be moved through. And then when the daughter comes in, what happens is that rage and so that rage is there, right? That's one thing. The
Okay.
other thing that patriarchy does is it glorifies, it puts this idea that motherhood is sacrifice, motherhood is suffering, motherhood is depletion, okay? And it glorifies this self-sacrifice over everything else. Therefore, the messages that patriarchy gives you is that motherhood is natural, and if you find it hard, it's your fault. You can be nothing. The mother has to be happy all the time. She has no right to be angry. Okay, and the mother needs to be the emotional center of the household, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fundamental premise of patriarchy and its view on motherhood is that motherhood is suffering, sacrifice, and depletion. So
Okay.
unconsciously, a lot of us have imbibed the idea that motherhood means that there is no sense for myself in it, right? The motherhood as sacrifice, glorifying depletion and denial of self, like the self does not have a space. So these are the fundamentals, and that is a patriarchy induced notion that all of us have grown up internalizing, right?
Okay.
And so what then happens is, this is suffocating, this is toxic for the mother, like growing up, being a mother in patriarchy. In addition, that sacrifice is put on a pedestal. And when she has the daughter, she gets done in by patriarchy, right? So that anger, rage has nowhere to go, because there are no safe spaces. There were no space, spaces. It's very isolating, right? When a mother feels like I'm struggling with parenting, she's dehumanized. She's like she's not fit to be a human, right? It's that shameful. But when shame happens, you shut down, and then there is guilt, and then isolation. You think you're the only one, and that rage has nowhere to go, because on the one hand, she grew up thinking that sacrifice is motherhood, and she has sacrificed so much of herself, and then she gets so little the thing is, she gets so little in return in terms of support, acknowledgement, etc.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, what happens is, in many cases, there is breakdown of relationship between the mother and father, and there's so much resentment and guilt, etc. And when that emotional connection breaks down, and then the daughter comes, or even if there is that connection in addition to that, right? So the daughter is put in the role of the mother's emotional punching bag sometimes, the mother's therapist, the mother's confidant, the mother's dumping ground, and the mother's
Sangeeta is
emotional
slowly
spouse.
getting into that zone. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
feel that already. I can feel it in my blood. Yeah. நீங்க பஞ்சிங் பேக்னு ஒரு வேர்ட் யூஸ் பண்ணீங்கல்ல, that அங்கதான் நிக்கிறீங்க நீங்க. Yeah.
Yeah. So on the daughter என்ன ஆயிடுறாங்கன்னா, she becomes the mother's dumping ground, punching bag, therapist. The daughter is put in a role which is not developmentally appropriate for her age. Okay. Yeah. இதுக்கப்புறம் என்ன ஆகுது அப்படின்னா, the daughter grows up looking at the mother's suffering and sacrifice and depletion and thinks my own needs are not important enough to be expressed. Okay, so the daughter exists very early on. The daughter internalizes that if I don't exist, or if I don't take up space, that might ease my mother's suffering. My needs are not important when compared to my mother's suffering. I don't have the right to exist. Maybe if I make my mother's pain go away in some way, she will see me. So there is a power imbalance, right? So it feels like there is only space for the mother's suffering and emotional needs, right? What few words only. If you speak Hindi well, listen. I don't know what that means. I do speak Hindi, but this is going to be in English.
இதெல்லாம் emotions, people. If it comes in regional language, let it come. A couple of words. Okay, this is powerful stuff that we're dealing with. This is like any mother, any daughter will understand. You will understand. Just follow our emotions. You will understand.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. The other thing that the daughter internalizes is that her own needs are flippant or minuscule when compared to the enormity of that mother's suffering and sacrifice, because patriarchy has told you that motherhood is that, right? What happens in that relationship is that three things happen there, right? One is she as a child, so like again, this is you the daughter, okay, not you the mother, okay, and we're dealing with some very deep stuff here. I'm trying to be as trauma sensitive as I can, but I'm expecting this to bring up a lot for you, so please take care of yourself. Pause if you need to, come back if you need to. People are saying they're feeling a lot of sensations in the body right now, so take care of yourself. Pause if you need to. Okay, so where were we? Yeah, so the pattern is, so this is her as the child, okay, but there are some developmental needs for the child, which is she needs the care provider or the mother to be her mirror, to accurately to make space for her, right? So what does the child need from the mother? Like what's this mother look like in maybe not an ideal scenario or good mother, maybe the good enough mother, okay? Mother is the attachment, mother is the co-regulator, mother is your mirror, Mother is your home base, right? But what happens when the mother's plate is full and she does not have any more nervous system capacity? What happens is the daughter is not seen. The daughter's emotional needs are too much and they're not met by the mother. So this daughter becomes invisible. She becomes the good girl. She says, if I'm a good girl, maybe my mother will like me. Maybe my mother will see me, right? So on the outward, she's a high achiever because, the projection of the mother, right? As a way to not bring shame on the mother and further suffering and add to the mother's plate, right? So on the outside, she's great. She's high achieving, she's performing, but her inner world is rage filled with no idea who she is, no understanding of boundaries, self-esteem, confidence, because what happens in a child's developmental uh, journey is that the child will explore boundaries. The child will individuate, right? So the child will develop ideas that are not yours, So when the child asserts this kind of independence or confidence or authority, that threatens the mother because it's like dishonoring her sacrifice. Sometimes they reject it, sometimes they turn abusive towards the child, right? And and so what she internalizes growing up is that my needs don't have a place. In families where there is less dysfunction and there is not a lot of tension and violence on a regular basis, the natural tension of the child individuating and testing boundaries can be met. There is space for that. But what happens in patriarchy is that the mother's cup is already full with all this rage around self-sacrifice and patriarchy also expects mothers to be superhumans, right? You keep a well-maintained house. You have to you have to keep your body in great shape, be a really good fuck. You have to dress up. You have to have high achieving kids. Your pets have to be groomed. Whatever else it is, right? So it sets the expected motherhood as superhuman, and then putting motherhood on a pedestal. And she fails, and she feels inadequate, and she has mixed emotions about motherhood, of course, and she can't express it anywhere because it's isolating. You dare not, you have to look at your children as God's gifts, and you can't say that motherhood is hard, right? And then, so there is a lot of that rage. In addition, in some families, there is mental illness, there is alcoholism, there is domestic abuse, there is incest, rape. Again, really take care of yourself if you're listening to it, and might be hard for many of us. Feet on the ground, deep breaths. Yeah. So what happens when there is all of that is that there
One
is no
second,
capacity.
Sangeeta. Somebody is asking, can you please clarify what do you mean by testing boundaries? What do you mean by children testing boundaries?
Yes. Yeah. What? Okay. So when a child is born, the child has no idea that its body is separate from that of its mother, that it is a separate body or a separate person. The idea that this is my body and this is my mother, because we're the same person, right? So it is only through constant, a very early, there's touch, etc. Okay, but as the child grows, there is a process of what is called differentiation or individuation, where the child has her own opinions on things. For example, my mother wants me to put oil and comb my hair, but I want to let it free when I go out. My mother wants me to wear, I don't know, pattu pavade for a function, but today I feel like wearing shorts. 3-year-old, 4-year-old. Okay. This is a natural sort of, this is what you want, but this is what I want type tension, boundaries, this is you, this is me type conversations, right? And children learn through play. They might, there's some, play times, they might say this is unfair and I want to go to bed at this time, and it's a conversation. Then it becomes a dialogue, right? You say, okay, I hear that, what can I do for you? The reason that many of us lose patience and yell, etc., because our cups are already full, because we're living in patriarchy, whether it's inside the home or outside, at work, in the society, on Instagram, in birth work, whatever, right? It's there, and that turns into this, and it's simmering on the surface, right? So you want her to be a good girl, right? And the other thing that you hear constantly, people of a certain generation, when they come home and they leave, they'd be like, Amma padtada, Amma iduvaa nadandukko. That is, it is always that children are, sort of less important than honoring your mother's suffering. It's always that. Versus, what happens when we constantly put that thing on a pedestal is, one, it's impossible to be superhuman, right? And the suffering and the constant. But what the children perceives, that my needs are not important, my personhood is not important. I wish I never existed because I'm just a burden in this family. Why did she have me? Because they don't know. Children have no idea, and this is you as the child, okay? Children have no idea that it's not their fault. And I'll tell you why, right? So the child would rather shame and self-hate and think that there's something wrong with her, rather than point out that the mother is she didn't get what she needed from the mother. Because it's honoring the mother, right? Honoring the parent. So the child grows up feeling, I cannot take up space, I cannot use my voice, I cannot be my own person, I cannot be confident about my abilities, I will always doubt my abilities. And here's the thing, right? There is an inherent sense of jealousy, mistrust, etc. about this daughter expanding or expressing confidence or breaking some rules about patriarchy that the mother couldn't. It's as if it's a betrayal of her life. It's as if it's a betrayal of her life and everything that she did. It's like betraying that sacrifice that she did. But that's manipulation and control, right? And that's how toxicity happens, right? In some mothers, it is this, shaming, criticism, that sort of thing. But in many mother-daughter relationships, there is overt manipulation, control, things that mothers do about every aspect of the daughter's life. Like, you have to be in subservience to me, loyalty, right? So this daughter becomes the parentified child much earlier. So she becomes the parent, the roles get reversed. But that's not a role that she's developmentally ready for or deserve to get pushed into. What about her own developmental needs? They were not met at the point at which they needed to be met, which is all the things that we spoke about: the mirroring, the attachment, the nurturing, the playfulness, the curiosity, the secure home base. All of those needs are not met for that child. So she grows up. So there's two, right? But what happens in childhood is that you internalize it, right? As if you did not deserve it. So if I were X, then I would have got her love or attention or needs, right? Or, if only I were this. And then women grow up with that, right? I will not have a voice. I will not have an opinion that is different from my mother's. I will grow up seeking her validation for everything that I do. I will also self-sabotage my career chances or my chances at love, better sex, happiness, because I'm going to sacrifice it at the altar of her sacrifices. Because otherwise she would reject me. And she does, right? So the children, the daughter, right? So then she becomes a teenager, then she becomes an adult, okay? But the daughter is stuck in a double bind, okay? The bind is, on one side, she has the need to individuate, to express her voice, find her identity, find her purpose in the world, and her journey and her destiny. But if she does that, she risks rejection. If she doesn't do that, that's compliance. If her needs are minimized and she's an emotional servant or an emotional spouse to the mother, there is approval.
Yeah.
So then there is no sense, that's the thing that she's stuck with, right? That her emotional needs or developmental needs were not being met. I'll pause.
When you said emotional spouse, oh my goodness. Oh,
The thing is, mothers and sons in patriarchy, that pattern, when I name it, people can easily spot that pattern, right? We all know the மாமியார் வந்து the என்ன சொல்றது அம்மா பையன் அந்த control என்கிட்ட சொல்லாம
mama's boy.
no, and in toxic relationships. So in the mother-in-law, we see the cycle, we name it, it's like yes, thank God you said it, that's exactly what that relationship is, aha moment, right? Because
Yeah.
if the mother-in-law's relationship with her husband broke down and failed for whatever reason, sometimes it's alcoholism, gambling, whatever, a mental illness, whatever, patriarchy, whatever, right? And it breaks down, and I mean their intimacy, their marriage breaks down, and then the mother-in-laws make the son responsible for her emotions, right? And then there's hell, because there's three people in a marriage. She wants the husband to be, the son to be her emotional spouse, right? That pattern. So when I name that pattern, it's like aha moment, right? Yes, of course, that is exactly what it is. And what underlies that is, so but when it comes to daughters and our relationship with our own mothers, there is something, because see, mother is your original source of safety, trust, and belonging, right? This is how you see the world. You and her were the same person. Therefore, if you saw her, you would have to see you and sit with the grief of what you did not get and the pain of not being emotionally met. That is hard. To get to that place is really hard, right? Therefore, there are powerful things that are stopping us from seeing this pattern in our own relationships with the mother. But whether it's daughters or sons, we'll come back to just the daughters for now, right? I think the thing that daughters internalize when they are the mother's emotional spouse is that I am responsible for my mother's feelings. And it's the same thing with the sons, right? I am responsible for my mother's. No, you're not. And so that's the work, right? But what you grow up, and you're sacrificing that at the altar of your own self. And you see, and then, in our 30s, we're like, who am I? Outside of this. Who am I outside of this? And there are so many times when we work in therapy where you say something or notice something specifically related to people's agency and competence, things that you're good at or things that her body is good at. Immediately there's a very shameful, critical, putting you down voice. Usually that's the mother. And that's what we've internalized, right? Because see, what the mother does is she's terrified of letting you expand into your own self and be confident and break the norms and be big, because some mothers have internalized that if you're too big, you are the target and patriarchy will hunt you down and kill you, etc. And you will be hurt and rejected and ridiculed. Therefore, stay small, stay invisible. You can't be bigger than me, because if you expand, I'm going to feel resentful of that. I had to do all these sacrifices and you didn't, which is ridiculous, right? Because her own wound comes up there, right? And she feels betrayed and rejected, as if her life had no purpose and that sacrifice was actually meaningless, right? So that is sort of the best, but the even darker side of this is then she manipulates and shames you and cuts you to size, right? Not as, sometimes she does that because she thinks she's protecting you from disappointment, or it's like, yeah, this is patriarchy and these are those rules. Sometimes you might remember, many of you may relate to something like this, right? When you're young and you say, I'm going to go to the moon, I'm going to do something, fantastic, whatever. Maybe they don't say it then, but you hear it. It's like, enna padichalu enna pannalum and kalyanam panninde kulandengala pettunde and karandi pidikanum. Like you're sacrificing all your degrees and that and this. And the story also is that in motherhood, there can be no self. There can be no you. If a woman doesn't want to get married or whatever, they'll say, இத்தனை வருஷம் உனக்காக வாழ்ந்தாச்சு, அதெல்லாம் போறோம், இப்ப கல்யாணம் பண்ணிட்டு மத்தவங்களுக்காக வாழ கத்துக்கோ. So what patriarchy tells women is that their entire lives and bodies are in servitude of others. That is the superhuman thing, right? And she needs to be that emotional center of everyone around her, right? Because that's what patriarchy tells the woman, right? And that's ridiculous, and she comes with all of it. But this is what happens with the daughters, right? And because her inner child gets triggered, she sometimes can get competitive with the daughter subconsciously. So the daughter self-sabotages her relationships, her career, as a tribute to her mother's suffering. Yeah, உனக்கு நீ அம்மாவானா உனக்கு தெரியும்.
ஆமா, ஸ்டாண்டர்ட். ஏன்னா அம்மா ஆனதுக்கு அப்புறம் எனக்கு வந்து தெரியல ஆக்சுவலி. ஏன்னா நான் வேற ட்ராக்ல போயிட்டு இருக்கேன்.
கரெக்ட். சோ
அவங்க ட்ராக்ல போயிருந்தா ஒரு வேளை தெரிஞ்சிருக்குமோ என்னவோ.
இல்ல, இப்படிதான் இப்படிலாம் பேசினவதான் நானும். Okay, so I've heard this. Okay, so the story is,
yes.
My mom didn't want to get married, and she wanted to become a nurse like Florence Nightingale. And hey, I'm a doula now. Figure it out, right? So even in a lot of unconscious ways, that is what we're doing, right? We're sort of avenging, what she didn't have, or making it whatever, right? So she wanted to go and do like social service for people and all that, and then she very casually says nothing happened, and here the whole life எல்லார அந்த suffering இல்ல, அந்த suffering தான் pedestal, as if there is no other way out.
No other way. கஷ்டப்பட்டாதான், இதெல்லாம் கஷ்டப்பட்டாதான் வரும். நீ அப்படியே ஹாயா இருந்தாலும் ஒண்ணும் வராது. எனக்கு இங்க ஒரு கஷ்டம், நீ அங்க சந்தோஷப்படுற அப்படின்னு கேட்பாங்க. எனக்கு இங்க இவ்ளோ கஷ்டம், நீ அங்க ஹாப்பியா இருக்கல்ல.
Because you are responsible for her emotions, remember? Because you and her, you are in service of her. right? So எப்படிலாம் இது manifest ஆகுது? I want control over your life. I want control over every mini decision that you take or don't take. You cannot be too visible, more visible or bigger than me in, you know, in the larger context. And if you are, it has to be in social, the ways that I approve of. Because you are my trophy. You exist in service to my achievement, you know. And anything that you achieve which I don't approve of is threatening to me. I'm going to reject it, right? Yeah. And what else? You cannot, the fact that you have more access to happiness, sexual pleasure, or just expressing you in any way really threatens me. I'm scared of that, and I'm going to reject you. I'm going to cut you down to size because you need to be in service of me, right? So you are my emotional dumping ground, and you need to be emotionally available to me because of obligation. Now, you know, for that sacrifice, you need to be in my service. I will call you once an hour. You have to pick up, you have to answer, you have to be in service of me. The issue is there is no reciprocity, which is all, you know, fine in context. But the issue is there is no reciprocity because, so the adult daughter and the adult mother, right? The adult daughter really does not feel safe to emotionally depend on this mother because as a child, her cup was full and her emotional needs were not met. So there is no safety in reaching out now. Right? So we lie, we minimize, we don't share actually what's going on. How many children, right? How many children, young girls, between the ages of 6 and 10 or 12 have been sexually abused by a relative, a cousin or an uncle, right? And they didn't even think, it didn't even occur to them that going to their mothers was a choice. Because she is not important, right? What she feels is that she and her needs and her personhood, legitimacy for her as a person, for her to take up space, is not there because the mother's cup is full. I feel like a burden. I can't take up space. I need to be strong. If I'm strong, she'll meet me. If I'm good, she won't abuse me emotionally or even physically sometimes.
நான் பட்ட கஷ்டத்தை நீ பட வேண்டாம்.
So என்ன சொல்றேன்னா, the reason that it is deep is because it is not reciprocal, right? It is not that, you know, she calls you every hour and she talks about her life. Where is you in it? Say you could call her. The only time she will have time for you is if you talk about your sacrifice and suffering and how difficult life is for you. Nothing else. She is not your sounding board, which the mother is, right? In an ideal world, the mother is the sounding board, right? You might say, hey, I'm thinking about this, whatever it is, right? No, there is no space for that. The only time she might feel connected to you is if you talk about your suffering, and then she'll cut you down to size because she'll say this is nothing compared to the altar of my suffering. Because at least you have a husband that doesn't hit you, whatever else it is, right? Therefore, your emotions are not valid. They're invalid. Your needs for emotional connection and support, your feelings, the depth of what you're feeling has no meaning to me because it's not in service of me and my suffering.
We are reading all your comments, ladies. We are reading them. I am reading them.
Yes,
I'm sure
I'm reading
Sangeetha is
them
also
also.
reading.
Yes.
Keep them coming. Keep them coming.
Hmm.
And I really recommend you girls to comment on the saved video so that people who are watching know what you went through while the video was being recorded. Okay?
Yes, because that's what patriarchy says, right? Their life is defined by sacrifice, suffering, depletion. And then the idea of taking time for themselves felt selfish, right? So the mother-daughter dynamic, because of what happened in the daughter's childhood, comes to a point where only one of them can exist at one time in that relationship, in the sense that it's either the mother, her experience, her suffering, her needs to be met, or if you're the infant and she's feeding you, then that's the mother, whatever, doing what she needs to do, right? Whereas an adult relationship, because she's threatened by you taking up space, and you internalize that, and then you think, I'm not worthy of taking up space, my voice is not worthy of being heard. If I minimize and stay invisible, it might ease her suffering a little bit, so then maybe she'll give me love,
Hmm.
validate my existence, maybe even meet my needs. Because what happens in patriarchy is this abuse, the patriarchy that is all around the mother, creates that rage, right? And her emotional cup gets full, her nervous system is overwhelmed all the time. And when that happens, there is emotional abandonment of that child, the daughter. The attunement, the connection. And then she becomes invisible, right? Sometimes until a point. Same thing with and then when you're in your teenage and you get into relationships with this, I don't deserve to exist, my personhood is not valid. There is a big difference between being wanted and being needed, right? A child wants to feel wanted. But when the child is in relationship with this mother who's a survivor, who's in patriarchy, with all this rage, she sort of emotionally abandons the child because her emotion, it's too overwhelming for her. The cup is full. So then the child feels unwanted, like her needs don't have space. But what's the next best thing to being wanted is to be needed. So she becomes the caretaker. She becomes the protector. She saves her mother from her father. She saves her, brother from, whatever, right? Because then I have a role. இதெல்லாம் பண்ணா என்ன நீ பாப்பியா? இதெல்லாம் பண்ணா எனக்கு நீ பாசம் கொடுப்பியா? இதெல்லாம் பண்ணா நீ என்ன அபியூஸ் பண்ணாம இருப்பியா? அந்த ரோல்ல என்ன போட்டு மேனிபுலேட் பண்ணாம இருப்பியா? எத்தனை தடவை பேட்ரியாக்கினால மாமியார் மாமனார் அண்ட் அந்த கோவத்தினால குழந்தை பண்ணாத தப்புக்கு குழந்தைய அடிச்சிருக்காங்க. நீங்க you as a daughter, and again just you as a daughter today, just give yourself that, not you as the mother. I mean, a lot of you are saying I don't want to, but I don't want to continue this. Yes, we're going to get to that, but see okay, but just for now, it's just you as the daughter. Sometimes what happens is, then there are other issues, like I said, right? Family, mother's own burden, what she carried and what her relationship with her mother was, right? And in that history, if there was, mental health, domestic violence, alcoholism, whatever, incest, rape, all that, right? It gets passed on. It definitely does. But then what happens is this almost becomes like a narcissistic mother and the codependent daughter. Like, I only exist because I'm needed by somebody. If not, I have no self-worth. I can't take up space. I don't know who I am except in service of the mother, except to be the emotional spouse of that mother. I don't know who I am outside of that victimhood. But then they become victims in this, right? So we all think that, and sometimes this is sort of like narcissism sometimes, right? We all think of narcissism as very manly, overtly, egoistic man who cannot think about anybody but himself, who's violent, who'll get his way doing whatever, then that's one form. But there is this covert narcissism, which is very closely linked to this mother wound, right? Which is using the mother's victimhood and sacrifice as a weapon. Then it's manipulation, it's control, right? We all know mother-in-laws who control the sex lives of their sons and daughter-in-laws. There are so many examples of the moms being manipulated because they're scared that the daughter will leave them. It feels like abandonment. You're my sounding board, you're my dad, you're my this, I've made you that. That was not your role to do. Like, the roles reversed. There's so much angst around that for the daughter, right? Because her needs didn't get met. It's not an equitable relationship, right? The only time her needs get met is if she can continue the story of victimhood that her mother and the sacrifice, whatever. எனக்கு ரொம்ப கஷ்டமா இருக்குமா, அந்த இப்படி இருக்கு அப்படி இருக்கு புலம்பலாமா, அப்ப வந்து it's like okay, yes. But then at the end of it, at least it was not that bad. அந்த காலத்துல எனக்கு அது இருந்தது இது இருந்தது. That's also covert narcissism, right? Manipulation, control, victimhood, weaponizing things. And motherhood is the relationship with the mother is supposed to be safe. And so many, and so the daughter thinks she has to be a high achiever. She has to share everything with her mother and have no, needs of her own, no wants, share everything, etc. And then she shares something with her mother in confidence. Then the mother weaponizes it and uses it against her to abuse her into shutting up, going and telling other people, and that constant mistrust, right? That layers one on top of the other. And that's abuse. Like, so much of abuse can also happen as a result of it, right? Again, it's a spectrum of from I'm threatened by you becoming a different person because I'm scared that you'll become so big that you'll leave me, you'll abandon me. படிக்க போகாத, பக்கத்துலயே கல்யாணம் பண்ணிக்கோ. And it's disguised as sacrifice. அப்பதான் உன் குழந்தைய நான் பார்த்துக்க முடியும், உன் கல்யாணம், உன் பிரசவம் பார்க்க முடியும். உனக்கு ஏதாவது, நீ சின்ன குழந்தை இல்ல, infantilizing the child, the daughter, for a very long time, because of this that is manipulation. That's patriarchy, right? And the manipulation, that's control over this daughter because she's the emotional spouse. Like, you can't abandon me. You have to be in service of my needs and my sacrifice. Yeah, and invalidating the suffering. Yeah, exactly. Like, if you don't suffer as much, you're invalidating that suffering. Exactly. That's, like, and you're invalidating her as a person, her life, her personhood itself, because motherhood is equal to womanhood, which is equal to suffering, sacrifice, superhuman, prioritizing everybody else's needs over her own.
It's good to see that so many women feel heard. They all feel like ஒரே த்ரெட்ல அந்த மாதிரி சொல்லுவாங்க இல்லையா? ஒரே
Yes.
மாதிரி we all feel very similar இப்போ திடீர்னு.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We're all there, okay? We are all together in this.
It is. It is. That's why I'm saying, உங்க வீட்டுக்குள்ள patriarchy இல்லைன்னா கூட, it is around you. It was around you, around your mother, right? So there is different levels of this wound, right? You know, on the one hand, it's that, you know, keep yourself small, invisible, you know, good girls la. அப்ப இந்த சின்ன குழந்தைகளெல்லாம், when you're around your mother, oh, so helpful for your mother. You know, even இப்ப கூட somebody comes to visit my home the other day, உடம்பு பாத்துக்கோ அது இதெல்லாம் சொல்லிட்டு, அம்மா சமத்தா இருக்கணும், அம்மாவை படுத்தாம இருக்கணும். That is
நீ
what they say.
போயிட்டேன்னா இதெல்லாம் யார் பாத்துக்கிறது, வீட்டு வேலை யார் செய்யறது?
Yeah, and so there's a little girl who's around the mother, right? Oh, yeah, she's so good, she's invisible. I didn't even இருக்கிற இடம் தெரியாம இருக்கா. That's the term. இருக்கிற இடம் தெரியாம இருக்கா. No, she's actually making herself small and invisible because she feels she's unimportant. She's not worthy enough to be seen because there is this huge patriarchy and trauma and abuse, etc., that her mother's facing. She feels that she is not worthy to go and reach out for her own needs. And when she has, she's been met with rage. Two. And not just that she wasn't met, she has been put in a position of satisfying her mother's emotional needs when she had no idea how to do that. So this is the thing, right? There is no patriarchy without women, right? So women are the torch bearers of patriarchy, and that's the basis of that mother wound. How many of you here are parentified children who were cast into the role of an emotional parent long before they were developmentally ready for it? How many of you assumed the role of a psychotherapist long before you knew what that term meant? How many of you felt responsible for your parents' emotions? How many of you have minimized yourselves? This is what we bring into adult relationships. Whether we choose our partners or the partner gets chosen for us, we want those needs were not met then. And we don't see it. This is what I'm saying, right? It is too painful for you to sit with this feeling and reality of, because it's too painful, immediately we escape it and think, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be my mother. So when this happens, there's two responses, right? One is, no, my mother and her life and sacrifice, and she's the epitome of this. No, nothing was her fault. It's all my fault. I should have been a better child. I was naughty. I was that. I was this. I didn't study well in school. Blah, blah, blah. If only I had done that, like my sister, she might have been more, you know, whatever to me. Something like that, right? And then the second thing, when you find this out, is everything was my mother's fault. I blame her. Both things are ways to avoid sitting with the pain and grief that as a child, your needs were not met. That is painful, very painful. We want to run away from it, right? The brain will block it for so many reasons until it feels safe to actually see it and hear it. The thing that I'm talking about now, it will land differently for different people. And it might land over a period of time. Some people might listen to this, come back to it 1 month later, come back to it 6 months later. It's a process because it's so painful, because the mother is the site of you are the same person, right? That attachment, it's a biological need to attach. And therefore, it's scary for us to think that this is what was going on. It's painful because it hits at a very core level, right? it's in utero, it's birth, it's parent, it's everything, right? Our relationships with our mothers are, it's sort of everything in the beginning because we are them, right? So the one thing, okay, is that we can't change the mother. We try to do, when you hear this, most people, many women have spent time trying to fix, rescue, or shame or heal their mothers. Have you, how many of you have tried that? Have any of you tried to constantly fix or rescue, protect, or heal the mother? In some ways, yeah. This is the thing though, right? We do that because that little child in us is saying, நீ மாறிட்டா எனக்கு அப்ப கிடைக்காதது இப்ப கொடுப்பியா? If somehow you heal, would you be the mother that me as a child needed back then? But no, no. It's not about doing the work of healing. Does not involve your mothers at all. Whether they're there, whether they're not there, at all. Because, right, it's this inner mother that needs to come to terms with what she didn't get and sit with that pain and grief, as uncomfortable as it is. That's really hard. That is really hard. We will do whatever we can to avoid it. Right? Sorry, and there was a question. What was it? The more she stops me to do something, the more I tried way to do it without her knowing it. Yeah, that's what leads to that manipulation cycle, right? Shaming, control.
Yeah.
Then she finds out there's no trust in that, right? The entire trust is broken because then you are finding sneaky ways to kind of go around that rage instead of confronting it head on. And that manipulation, then that becomes a cycle, right? Of control. It becomes about power and control, not about love, not about needs being met, not about attunement. It's a power thing. How many of you have a really toxic power dynamic with your mother, where if you use your voice, she gets defensive and she'll attack, say something to shame and shut you down? Yeah. How many of you have tried to say something confident, say something with agency, like I'm competent at this, I'm good at this, I know my stuff, I'm good at what I do? Have you tried saying that to your mother or mother-in-law? It's an interesting experiment which I just figured out yesterday. And I was connecting the dots about this yesterday, which was like, it's very uncomfortable for women to see or hear any other woman's agency, competence, including that of her own daughter. She'll say immediately something that cuts you to size, or the face will change and she will notice the things that இன்னும் இத பண்ணிருக்கலாமே,
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the mother-in-law, right? It's very uncomfortable for her to see your competence, see you as being larger than she was, or having more, expanding into life in more ways than she has. And so, a lot of times there'll be that cutting you down to size. I observed that one day. My daughter, my 6-year-old, was playing. This is a pattern. Like if I tell my in-laws something about my daughter, something, oh, she did this, பெருமையா ஏதாவது சொன்னேன் அப்படின்னு, அவளோட கான்ஃபிடன்ஸ் சம்திங், அவ இல்லாதப்ப ரொம்ப பெருமையா இருக்கும், அது போய் 4 பேர்கிட்ட சொல்லிக்கலாம், என் பேத்தி, பெருமை. அவ இருக்கிறப்ப சொன்னேன்னா, when I notice the same thing about my daughter, my older one, 6-year-old, when she is around, in her presence, if I compliment her or say she is really good at music, she likes it, whatever, it's a my mother-in-law immediately will say, எல்லாம் ஓகே தான், ஆனா ஒல்லியா இருக்கு, சாப்பிடவே மாட்டேங்குது, தலை வாரிக்கணும், அது இது, something that would immediately. ஏன் அப்படின்னா அவளுக்கு திமிரு வந்துடக்கூடாதுல்ல, உமன்ல. So women can't be confident, right? That's immodest, right? நீ வந்து சின்னதா உன்னை குறைச்சிக்கிறியா? So this is what males think about women, right? If a woman, not that they are complimenting you, anybody compliments you and you're self-effacing about it, that's sexy to patriarchy, right? Because that means that you won't take up space. How many people have really hard time accepting compliments?
I had that phase, but now I'm kind of out of it. Yeah, it was very difficult for me. Up until I think 3-4 years back, it was very difficult. 3 years back,
Yeah, and to
I could
notice your
never
agency,
accept it. I
you know
could
what
never
you're
accept
trying
it.
to do is very offensive, right? You know, we were
Yeah.
talking about something and I kind of said, hey, no, you know, if I'm going to be taking time away from my kids, I need to make sure that I build a practice that is financially viable for me to do that, right? Which is, you know, if I'm making as much as probably what I pay my maids, then I don't have to go to work, and this is not what this is about. Something of that effect. Financial, like what I was saying was, you know, if it is not financially worth my time, then it can't be sustainable as a business, right? Or as anything that is worth spending time on. Something to that effect. Okay. And she was like offended because it's like, oh my God, she's so immodest. I was not saying that I was good or anything, right? And I 3 days ago, my mom's here now, and 4 days ago, my mom and I were coming back from somewhere, and we were just at a traffic light. I was driving just about 9 o'clock in the night, and we don't have like real conversations anymore because, you know, but I said some version of, Mom, I'm good at what I do. You know, this therapy work is rewarding for me. It's rewarding for other people. Like, I really have a knack for this. Something like that. Something to that effect, right? You could actually see that internal struggle because the thing is, நம்மளே நம்மளை பத்தி சொல்லிக்கூடாது, கண்ணு பட்டுரும், அது இது, whatever it is, right? The immediate sense of, you don't be big because the world will reject you, or whatever, something bad. You might be rejected, you might get disappointed, you know, and the disappointment is a normal part of life. Yeah, இப்போ வந்து, if you had the emotional capacity, this, you know, reaching out for something ambitious, reaching high and not making it, and then the disappointment that comes after it, அதை handle பண்ற emotional capability. Some houses had that, some houses did not have that, because both people's nervous systems were full and overwhelmed all the time. And therefore, don't aim, don't make yourself big, because then if you get cut down to size, you might be disappointed. That's the normal part of that child growing up, right? But the thing is that there is no capacity to hold space for that. Yeah. And you could see that struggle. I mean, going back to how she reacted, I think there was a visible struggle between, and she said, I don't remember exact, yeah, okay, she kept on asking questions to poke a hole in that theory. Like what she could, the only thing she could react was, I said, I'm really good at this therapy stuff. She said, I thought you were a doula.
Pocha.
Everything. No, this is the thing, right? GRE இது அந்த காலத்துல, okay, GRE எல்லாம் எழுதிட்டு 1500 and 1600 வாங்கியிருந்தேன். வீட்டுக்கு வந்தோடனே the first thing she said was, 100 மார்க் எங்க விட்ட? This is very typical of achievement oriented parents, right? அதாவது you exist as for her, you know, உன்னோட achievements are about her, no, not about you. உனக்கு என்ன வேணும், எனக்கு அவ்வளவு கிடையாது. You know, it's not just the mother, you know, the whole, it's the system, right? But இதெல்லாம் வந்து adult stuff. But I'm saying, I mean, when you're an adult to adult interactions, whatever. But it's a deep wound, right? And one that we do our best to avoid. We externalize it. We blame ourselves. Maybe நான் இப்படி பண்ணிருக்கணுமான்னு தெரியல, ஆனா இப்படிதான் ஆரம்பிப்போம்ல நம்ம சென்டென்சஸ். இதுல என் தப்பும் இருக்கு அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு அதெல்லாம் சொல்லிட்டு அதுக்கப்புறம் ஒரு லேசா அவங்களும் ஆனா இப்ப கோவப்படுவாங்க, அடிப்பாங்க. வாட் எவர் இட் இஸ் தட் ஃபாலோஸ் தட், ரைட்? Yeah, so I mean the thing about this is that it's not your job to heal, fix, rescue anybody. The painful reality of the mother, I mean, right? Or that relationship itself actively with that person. But it is possible for us to heal. The only way, but one of the big ways we do that is by actually sitting with the pain and grief. And acknowledge that, right? So then we move from a place where only one person can be seen and met, or have only one personal experience mattum on the relationship la space eduthuka mudiyum. So only one person's experience and needs can feature in this unequal relationship. Because when the other person, i.e. the daughter, reaches out, she's met with hostility, shutdown, shaming, abuse. இதெல்லாம் ஒரு பெரிய விஷயமா? வீடு இங்க அப்படியே பத்தி எரிஞ்சுட்டு இருக்கு, இப்ப இது முக்கியமா? இந்த டாய் வாங்கிட்டா, வாட் எவர் இட் இஸ், ரைட்? டாய் வாங்கிட்டா அது இதுன்னு. What does the child do? Stop asking. Because she thinks, ஏற்கனவே எங்க வீட்டுல அவ்வளோ ஃபைனான்சியல் ட்ரபிள்ஸ் இருக்கு, இதுல நான் வேற வந்து இது கேட்கணுமா? அது வந்து சில சமயம் டாய்ஸா இருக்கு, சில சமயம் ஆக்சுவலி எஜுகேட் லைக் திங்ஸ் தட் ஷீ ரியலி
தேவையானதா கூட இருக்கலாம். ஆமா
இருக்கு, ஆனா அதை
கேட்க மாட்டோம்.
லெஜிட்டிமசி எனக்கு இல்ல. நான் வந்து கம்மியா அப்ளை பண்ணுவேன், என் மார்க்குக்கு நல்ல யூனிவர்சிட்டிஸ் கிடைக்கும், பட் நான் ரொம்ப கீழே சேஃபா அப்ளை பண்ணுவேன். பிகாஸ் எனக்கு வந்து ஸ்காலர்ஷிப் கிடைக்கலன்னா அது ஃபைனான்சியல் பர்டனா இருக்கும். அது இருக்கிற பிரச்சனையில நம்ம வந்து ஆட் பண்ணக்கூடாது.
ஆமா. And நிறைய girls, I think girls who have been in hostels and boarding and all that can resonate that we would try to spend as little as possible, and we'll try to இல்ல எங்கெல்லாம் சுருக்க முடியுமோ சுருக்குவோம். And ஒரு கொஞ்சம் ஏதாவது எக்ஸ்ட்ரா இருந்தாலும் நம்ம வீட்டுக்கு அனுப்பலாம் அப்படின்னு யோசிப்போம். அது பெரிய ஒரு அமௌண்டா இருக்காது, பட் ஸ்டில் you'll want to help them out, you'll want to do it for them. And yeah.
Question about GR. I wrote GRE in 2003, so ancient. Okay, so it was a different. I don't even know what the format is like now, but this was like a million years ago. So எல்லாமே, அதாவது என்னோட எமோஷனல் நீட்ஸ் வந்து நான் இதை பண்ணலாமா, இது எனக்கு வாங்கித்தான்னு கேட்கவே இல்லை அப்படின்னு. ஆமா, ஏன்னா இது எல்லாமே, அதாவது சின்ன நீட்ஸா இருந்தாலும் பெரிய நீட்ஸா இருந்தாலும் அந்த குழந்தைய பொறுத்த வரைக்கும் அது நீட்ஸ் தான்ல.
ஆமா, பட் சொல்லும்போது சொல்லுவாங்க நீ கேட்டதெல்லாம் வாங்கி தந்திருக்கோம்ல.
பெரிய வயசுல ஸ்டாப் ஆஸ்கிங், ரைட்?
இல்ல அதான் சொல்லும்போது they will tell that நீ கேட்டதெல்லாம் வாங்கி தந்திருக்கோம்ல, நீ கேட்டது என்னதுக்கு நோ சொல்லிருக்கோம் அப்படி இப்படின்னு.
But that comes with a heavy, அத கேட்கறது கேட்காம இருந்துக்கலாம்.
ஆமா ஆமா கண்டிப்பா.
So much of disclaimers and இது பண்ணா நீ பண்ணணும், பண்ணா நீ homework முடிக்கணும். It's always in service of
very conditional. ஆமா.
And it's manipulation, control, it's very conditional. Then you don't feel like your needs are legitimate, right? Yeah. Or that they have a space and you can be met, you can be mirrored back. நீ யாருன்றத உனக்கு மிரர் பண்றப்ப என்ன சொல்றாங்கன்னா, நீ வந்து ஃபெயிலியர் ஆயிட போற, நீ வந்து கம்மி ஆயிட போற, நீ எப்படியா இருந்தாலும் கரண்டி பிடிக்க போற, நீ எப்படியா இருந்தாலும் உன்னோட நீட்ஸை வந்து அந்த in the altar of motherhoodல வந்து you're going to sacrifice, for you to become a mother, you will give up all of these things. So don't get too attached to them, don't get too attached to your dreams, don't get too attached to your ambitions or your individuality, because you have to sacrifice all of this in the altar of patriarchy and motherhood anyway. So I'm going to set that expectation for you early on so you don't get disappointed. அது ஒரு side. இன்னொன்னு, how dare you do that? Because that means you're rejecting me, you're abandoning me. That's that narcissistic aspect, right? Which so many of us can, relate to. Yeah.
Yeah.
காசுன்றதோட, அதாவது ஈவன் ஒரு ஜென்ரலா எனக்கு இது பண்ணு அதை பண்ணு, நார்மல் ஸ்டஃப், ரைட்? இப்போ வந்து அந்த அந்த நர்வஸ் சிஸ்டம் ஓவர்வெல்ம்டா இருக்கு அப்படின்றப்ப இட்ஸ் லைக் வீட்ல இவ்ளோ நடந்துட்டு இருக்கு, இப்ப இது முக்கியமா? That's shaming needs, right?
Yeah,
Consistently, that little girl's needs are shamed for being too unimportant as compared to the enormity of this patriarchal trauma. I mean, sitting with the pain and grief is one thing. Then, kind of working through that. The biggest issue enna solli kodukudhu patriarchy about motherhood and all that is that patriarchy does not respect boundaries. Patriarchy is all about intruding into people's time and space and all of that stuff, right? Boundaries, healthy boundaries kadayad patriarchy la, right? Motherhood la boundaries irukka kodadu. Unboundaried, அதுதான் comes from depletion. அதாவது ஒன்ன நீ குறைச்சிக்கணும். Your needs are unimportant as opposed to the needs of everybody else. Therefore, there are no boundaries at all that was modeled for daughters that grew up viewing their mothers in patriarchy. Therefore, they think unboundaried existence is love. So when they get into relationships, they have no idea what boundaries are. So they allow boundaries to be violated over and over again. And then the rage comes up because that's the same pattern where you're not actually being seen or heard or met because you actually don't even know what your needs are, boundary needs are, until they have been violated so far that it erupts into rage because you suppress it for that long. And that's how that pattern continues. So it starts with sitting with the pain and grief, but then there is this the redefining your boundaries and discovering who you are, right? Many women have said, I don't know who I am except what my mother has told me about myself. நான் ஒரு சின்ன ஏதாவது ஒரு சாமான் வாங்கணும்னா கூட என்னால அந்த டெசிஷனை மேக் பண்ண பயமா இருக்கும். And I need my mother's approval, validation. Because I don't exist outside of that. So I have no idea who I actually am and what I actually want outside of that relationship. இது என்னன்னா, the first daughters are much more a victim of this direct mother-daughter relationship than subsequent daughters. Because with subsequent daughters, there is a degree of separation, I think. But sometimes what happens is the subsequent daughters, second or whatever number of daughters, will then sacrifice and self-sabotage their success to be less than or less visible than the older sibling. As a way, அதேதான் அந்த பேட்ரியார்க்கியோட ஆல்டர்ல நீ sacrifice பண்ணிக்கிற, right? And persistent patterns of self-sabotage in career. Who can relate to self-sabotage? Thinks that somehow you go to a certain point, you really think that you want it, and then you do things that would stop you from doing that. Because that would be like dishonoring, your mother or your older siblings' experience. And so you can't have a happier, marriage, you can't have a better sex life, you can't have better relationship with your in-laws than, what either your mother had or your sister had. Idla subconscious, right? Nobody's actually telling you how dare you be happy. Nobody says that, right? But that's what happens underneath, right? You see those, and then this manipulation, subversion. இது வந்து நம்ம மதர்-இன்-லா கிட்ட நான் ஈஸியா ரெகக்னைஸ் பண்ணிடுவோம். என்ன ஒரு இடத்துக்கு போக கூடாது, பரவாயில்ல போயிட்டு வாம்பாங்க. They'll say if she wants to go somewhere, yeah, you go there. And then before I go, she'll complain of headache, chest ache, whatever. And so, that our plans will be cancelled because she's terrified of, letting her son go.
I'm sure
mothers know that too.
everybody who's watching this can associate with this example. I'm sure of that.
Yeah, so I was saying that this covert, the manipulation, this control, and being terrified of abandonment and losing the emotional spouse is more obvious in the mother-in-law relationship, where, you know, say the couple want to go somewhere and they say we're going, the mother-in-law says yeah, fine, and then before they leave, you know, she has a headache or whatever it is, something that makes sure that you have to cancel your plans because she's terrified of losing the son to you or whatever it is, right? So I was saying that that pattern, we notice it so easily in the when it
Mother-in-law.
happens, you know, because the 1 degree separated from that experience, right? But there in a large amount of cases there is also that relationship with the mother and daughter, right? Like that fear around her being, you know, visible, and, you know, it's like doka.
So what is the way out now? I think people are asking, should we sit with the pain? Should we sit with the pain? நிறைய பேர் கேக்குறாங்க. How do we sit with the pain? How do we sit? Is that it? Should we just sit with the pain?
No,
So
I mean,
what,
I think that
what's
if
next?
we don't recognize it, there's no moving forward with it, right? That's why I'm saying that because it's too painful for us to sit with it, we either rush to fix her and get angry at her and, you know, in that relationship, which it's not going to change, or bring back your childhood or get your childhood needs met because they were not met at that point, right? When it was developmentally appropriate for it to be met. Or we say, I'm going to blame her, you know, which is fine. I mean, you know, if you want to minimize contact, that's absolutely something that can help for a bit of time before it's a process, right? But I'm saying that, I blame everything on her, then it avoids you taking personal responsibility for your healing, right? So I think, you know, sitting with the pain and grief is the most
Dr.
important.
Vijaya ma'am, all this shows up in labor and
Yes,
birth.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally. Yes. And I'll tell you this, okay? How many women are really scared to reach out and have a beautiful birth because their sisters, mothers, mother-in-laws, sister-in-laws had a traumatic birth? I can't be more, you know, open about my needs. அந்த காலத்துல நாங்கெல்லாம் வந்து இப்படியா பேசிட்டு இருந்தோம்? போவோம், படுத்துப்போம், அறுத்து கொடுப்பாங்க, வந்துருவோம், அவ்வளவுதானே? We would go there, we would just lie down and they will do whatever they need to do, and then we came back. We didn't complain. I think I've shared this example. I'll share it again. I had a home birth with my second daughter, and as I was pushing, there was a point after transition where any kind of contact felt like a sensory overload to me. And then I was in the pool in my home, and the midwives had a Doppler that they were trying to monitor her heartbeat, and I kept pushing it away. It was a very animal, primal part, okay? And just before that transition, there was a point where it felt out of control. So I got very vocal at that point, and I was loud about this intensity. And until then, it was so lovely to have my husband touch me, stroke me, all of that. But when I was transitioning, I didn't want anybody to touch me, right? And there was that moment of like being out of control thing, and my husband was trying to do what he could. And so he said something like, I don't know what he said at that point. And I just kind of swatted his hand away and said, fuck off, okay? Now, after that, my doula spoke to me, whatever, right? And then I had a birth, everything's hunky-dory, whatever, okay? So 2 days later, we're all sitting at a dinner table, and my husband and I were joking about this, okay? Really, like, it was very funny in jest, you know, hey, you did this, da da da. I was like, yeah, really, I was pushed. It was just like a very funny, I didn't remember, you know, you don't remember much of it, whatever. We're trying to, you know. And then my mother was sitting at the table. She got offended and angry. Like it came out of nowhere, and she's like, "How dare you? This man is so supportive, and he's that and this." And I kept saying that I pushed the midwife's hand away, and I also said, "Mom, I was pushing. It was primal. You have had 2 vaginal births. Do you not remember any of this? The least, I mean, the thing that is the least important is the woman kind of just swatting the husband's hand away, right? Or whatever she says at that point in time." And then I said, I know of a midwife friend of mine who said that when the lady was bearing down, she was on the midwife's kind of shoulder and she kind of bit it without realizing or whatever. And you're in labor land, right? So you don't actually have any cognitive sense of that. And so the lady had no sense of that the next day, and the midwife kind of let it go, and it was never spoken about, whatever. She was appalled and shocked because that was not her experience. You could not say anything against authority figures at all, right? The husband, the mother, like the grandmother, the doctor. You could not actually say, valikide, or say something firmly, to the doctor. But the thing that she had internalized was, how dare you? Here, this is a woman, me, who's been in labor all night and who's had a vaginal home birth in the water with no interventions, and you have a healthy baby at the end of it, etc. The human body, and you've witnessed, or not exactly witnessed, but you were in the other room when something like this happened, and the first thing, edavadhu aayirundaduna, how dare you put yourself in danger, sort of thing, right? And then, how dare you ask your husband, you swat your husband's hand off? Are the reactions that, because that competence is scary, right?
Yeah.
And that's what she's internalized as, normal. And anything else was, how dare you take up space when I was pushing. Now, if a birthing woman can't take up space as she's pushing the fucking baby out, when else am I supposed to be big and visible, right? So, I mean, yeah, that's the journey, right? The pain and the grief, but also being able to hold your needs and as being true, as being seen, and boundaries is, that's the work, right? And when we can start doing boundary work is when we have a sense of who we are and what our needs are, and then showing up, asking for it, and playing with that fluidity, and then eventually get to a point where that changes. Like that inner mother, the one that says you are good enough, you can take up space, your needs are important, you can be as big as you want without other women being threatened by it.
Mm-hmm.
You see this in birth work, you see these patterns of defensiveness, being threatened, in any community, whether there's, yeah, but especially, I mean, communities where there are women, there is a lot of this trauma that you're carrying, like my journey was difficult. I did all that groundwork back in the day, and now the market has opened up, and patterns like that, so much, we're so threatened, because we are in patriarchy.
போதும் புரிஞ்சிச்சு. Yes, so what's the solution? என்ன பண்ணலாம், நெக்ஸ்ட் என்ன பண்ணலாம்? அதுக்கு என்ன தனி லைவ் தேவைப்படுமா?
it's very hard to be kind to yourself and think of yourself as deserving of all of this.
Love.
அது
Attention.
அதுக்கப்புறம் அதுக்கு தான் நான் சொல்றேன், அந்த grief and pain ஓட like don't run away from that அவசரமா to the solution. The solution, I mean, it's a long journey, and it's an important thing for you to do for yourself, not just in the context of you being a parent to your children, because this is affecting your body image, storing fat around your waist, you know, your duty to, or you thinking of yourself as deserving of an eyebrow threading, waxing, whatever, I mean, whatever else it is, right? You deserving of being seen however you want to see it, your right to lose weight. That is so much ingrained in this, right? Your right to pleasure, your right to all kinds of pleasure, your right to choose your partner, your right to advocate for your sexual pleasure in the context of your marriage, your right to fucking money, right? I mean, there's no shame around women thinking that they're deserving of making money. Same thing, we do that thing where we think it's like உழைக்கணும் மாடா உழைக்கணும் அப்படியே செக்க மாடு மாதிரி. I don't know all of those things, right? Like பரவாயில்ல, குழந்தைங்களோட ஸ்கெட்யூல்ஸ்க்கு ஒத்து வர மாதிரி ஏதாவது பார்ட் டைமா பண்ணக்கூடாதா? You know, that thing, right? Oh, அவ என்ன இப்படி பேசுறா? You know, have you ever told, especially women in your family, that you're ambitious about, you like money, that you like making money? நம்ம யார் சொல்லிப்போமா? இல்ல, ஏன்னா அது ஷேம்ஃபுல் இல்லையா? அது வந்து இட்ஸ் நாட் சாக்ரிஃபைஸ். அதாவது அது என்னன்னா, the bigger your degrees and experience etc are when you come to motherhood, the more you would be put on an altar for sacrificing all of that in service of patriarchy, right? எனக்கு என்னோட செல்ஃப் இருக்கு, அதோட சேர்ந்து மதரிங்கும் இருக்கு அப்படின்றது வந்து ரொம்ப அதான் பவுண்டரிஸ், ரைட்? அது ரிஜெக்டட், அபேண்டன்ட், projecting their own wounds onto you, எவ்வளவு இருக்குல்ல அதுக்குள்ள.
வெளிய வருது.
Here's the thing though, right? Is I really feel to positive thing என்னன்னா, you don't have to deal with your mother or the idea of the mother when you're doing this, right? You're dealing with you, the daughter, and the healing happens at the level of that daughter first. When that happens, of course, everybody else around you is going to benefit from this, because when you change and you're more present and you can be more vocal about boundaries, you're not going to have that pent up rage. You're going to notice that boundary violation before it happens and be able to advocate for yourself in an embodied way without feeling shame and guilt for doing that and resentment. இப்போ நான் என்னோட பவுண்டரிஸ் நான் வந்து நான் சொன்னேன்னா, சொல்லலன்னு வச்சுக்கோங்களேன், யாராவது என்னை போட்டு மிதிச்சிடுறாங்க அப்ப. So when I don't advocate for myself and my boundaries are violated, I feel a lot of guilt and shame, especially in the context of birth, for example, birthing, right? So, you know, oh, I wish I had said this. The other thing is the resentment. Oh, that person advocated for herself. I resent her because I was not able to do that. Or I didn't think I was deserving of doing that. So boundaries can cause both, Leah. Lack, when you don't do boundaries, people invade it, then you feel resentful. If you do strong boundaries, they will shame you, then you feel guilty of, they'll feel rejected and abandoned, and you know, and then you feel guilt. That's the cycle. This is why boundary work is so hard, because it's overcoupled with so many things. And yeah, I mean, so that's the work, right? So okay, the bigger thing is, it's not a one day thing. And I really hope that the primary focus is not so that we don't, you know, we are better mothers, but heal the daughter first.
Yeah.
When the daughter heals, you will show up as a better spouse, better, you know, for everybody else, but for your own self, right? Your physical body, எவ்வளோ autoimmune conditions இருக்கு, in the pent up rage and manipulation and the doka mari, அதாவது I feel betrayed by my own women. I thought mother-in-law na அவங்க women அவங்க சப்போர்ட் பண்ணுவாங்கன்னு நினைச்சேன். அவங்களே எனக்கு பேஸ் பண்ணிட்டாங்க. எங்க சொந்த அம்மா கூட எனக்கு அன்னைக்கு வந்து எனக்காக நிக்கல, பேசல. that um, that that stuff, right? The betrayal, then it's isolating. Am I the only one that has a problem? This is the issue. So one of the biggest things that we can do is talk more about it, and don't feel that I won't say don't feel shame. If you feel shame, name it. It's very isolating. Mother wound is especially isolating because it's blasphemy. Cultural, அதாவது உமாச்சி கண்ணை குத்திடும் இல்லையா? அம்மாவை பத்தி நம்ம anything less than goddess, and there is religious repercussions to it, right? So we don't talk about this because we don't think those feelings are legitimate. We feel shame. We'd rather blame ourselves and think of ourselves as broken. It's very isolating, which is why you need this community of people who resonate with this, so you can connect and talk about it in a safe space without feeling judged. Shame dies when in open spaces, right? And we have oodles and oodles of shame in our bodies. Talking about it, sharing without repercussions is, I think, a big thing. The power of that peer support. Somebody who can say, yeah, you're not crazy, you're not ungrateful. It's possible for you to hold everything that they provided you without feeling obligated to be their emotional spouse or to minimize yourself or to not express your needs, right? So you can be grateful for what you had and mourn the loss of what you didn't have together, so it's not like it's one or the other, right? I have to say that I get angry when someone suggests to teach a job for that reason. Yes, I agree. See, I know that teaching is a noble profession. It's not the kochya solala, but I'm on the nurturing and caregiving roles say kochya patrolla consistently because we are devaluing the feminine. So nurses, doctors, caregiving roles, including teaching, consistent pandrom. But so I'm going to keep that aside. I think I know what that anger is about, is that your life should fit around that of your children and schedules. You minimize your ambitions, right? After I came here and I was figuring out what to do, that was one of the suggestions. And my mother-in-law is a teacher herself, and that enraged me, not because I'm putting down the teaching profession, but that idea that my life should fit around my children, right? And these days I'm very open about this is no, if I'm going to show up, it needs to be satisfying to me. I need to fucking like what I do. I will not, you don't have to suffer, Yeah, that enraged me too. Not because that it was not a noble profession, but it was this assumption that you should pick something that fits around your children's schedules and not be too ambitious, right? What the fuck? Healing starts with realizing the pain and wound. Yeah. This is very hard. This is why I'm not, going to solutionize things, but I just let you know that it might be a journey, and seek help. Form peer support groups. I think there's a lot of power in peer support. Start talking, share the stuff. And take care of yourself. If you're on the receiving end of narcissistic abuse from your mother, going no contact might do wonders to your body and nervous system for a while before you figure it out. And you are absolutely within your right to do that. Now, உடம்ப கெடுத்துட்டு அந்த altar of loyalty-less நம்ம வந்து அதுதான் when people, yeah, right? It's not disloyal to actually talk about what you didn't get. It's not disloyal. Yeah. All right. I guess that's all I had. I'm not. I've read some of your comments. Some of it is very fast, so I've not gotten to all of it.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of lag
Um,
also. நம்ம பேசி முடிச்சு கொஞ்ச நேரம் கழிச்சு தான் சில chats எல்லாம் வந்துச்சு.
Please, if you can, like Swati said, continue the conversation in the comments.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to save this video. It's more than an hour. I hope it'll be saved. So please come and comment your life experiences. நீங்க உங்க ஃபேமிலில undergo பண்ண விஷயங்கள், what your mom said, what your family members said, and anything that resonates with whatever Sangeetha just spoke. Please put in the comment section after the video is saved, so that people who come watch it, let them hear what people who heard live felt. Okay, that's
Especially
the only
what
reason.
happened in your body as you
Yes,
heard certain things.
yeah.
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 Yeah, obedience, compliance, so much of good discussion here. Obey, comply.
Yeah, there's just a lot of things that these girls are coming up with. I think next time we have to do a live on boundaries. And
Yeah.
please don't feel bad, okay, ladies, that you don't have boundaries. Most of us don't, because we were not taught how to create boundaries. So it's okay. It's okay to not know how to create boundaries. It's fine. We will learn. Okay, don't worry. So yes, thank you so much, Sangeetha, for yet another mind fucking blowing live. Thank you so much. You are amazing. You don't know how amazing you are. I don't know, maybe you know. So
No, I have a
yeah.
problem with that because I was never mirrored back. Right? I actually
You're amazing.
used
You're
to have a
amazing.
problem with that. Not
Say
in,
thank you.
like, you know,
Say
therapy
thank
and
you.
stuff. Yes,
Say thank
thank
you.
you. Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's coming up. Yes, I will
Yeah.
accept it without shame coming up.
Yeah, so you're amazing. I'm amazing. These
Yes.
girls are all amazing. You girls are all
Yes.
beautiful, amazing people. Okay,
Much
people
love to all of
people
you.
didn't tell
There are
us these things, so we should tell it to each other. Yeah.
Yes, some of you are my clients. I am seeing you. I am reading your comments as well. So, and all of you, everybody, right?
Yeah.
What
And
you guys,
people
I mean,
who
this,
have
yes,
நான் பேசுறேன்.
go ahead.
People who have not heard our first live, please go watch this live called Good Girls, Bad Births. Though it has birth in the title, it is a lot more. The video is a lot more than that. And we have done a video on patriarchy. Go